I have completely fixed the Sport Cub S from our previous flight failure 5 days ago. It flies absolutely wonderful now. Just came back from the field. Let me tell you what I did to get this thing working. This is the Hobby Zone Sport Cub S. It's a ready-to-fly model. I will put a card up for a video I did 5 days ago for the initial test flights. And the flights went horrible. The plane just didn't perform well at all. Let's take a look at those initial test flights. This is the very first flight about 5 days ago with a supplied transmitter with a ready-to-fly airplane. I was fighting the Cub the whole way. You can see it's swooping and diving. As it turns here, it just went straight down. I don't know what was causing it. Somehow it pulled out. Very erratic flight, not regular. Tried to get in closer for pictures. It just wasn't working. So went back home, thought about it, then we'll see what happens next. Okay, we'll do a test flight of the Cub S with the DX6 transmitter. Kendrick has very nicely volunteered to film it, so let's give it a shot. So now we'll take it with a flight with the DX6 paired, bonded with the aircraft. Pretty windy day, very smooth takeoff. The wind is left to right. You can see it bounces a little bit. That's just the wind, the gust of wind picking it up. Very positive control, plenty of power. After a turn downwind, just coming back up. Just a very smooth flying airplane. The AS3X is doing a wonderful job smoothing out all the bumps, and the plane handled well. So in the video, I'll describe what the DX6 does, some tricks on how to bind it, channel assignment for the SAFE and AS3X, and hopefully you can learn from this. And if you have one of these models that flies well, if you're having troubles, consider binding it to one of your main transmitters. You saw in the video, I didn't have control of the model. Sometimes it would go straight down. I was just fighting it the whole time. And I was thinking about it. One of the viewers wrote in on comments, well, maybe you should not use the transmitter that came with it. So this is the transmitter that came with the kit or the offering. 4-channel transmitter, and it has the 3 switches on back for the safe mode, full, medium, and off, and then the panic button to recover from flight. They said, well, maybe something's not right with that transmitter. And that kind of resonated with me because I was losing control at some time. And they said, consider binding it to one of your existing better transmitters. Now, I've been using the Spektrum DX6 for several years. Absolutely love it. All the models essentially you see in my YouTube channel is with the DX6. And because this plane is from the parent company, Horizon Hobby, that's involved with Spektrum as well, most of their electronic products can work with the Spektrum series. In other words, you can bind this transmitter to this to the radio. So that's what I did. Now there was a few tricks on binding it because you have to bind it, which I'll show you quickly how to do, and then you have to assign some channels to take account for the safe switches and the panic button here. I'll show you where that is in the manual. I don't fly with SAFE. I don't think it's needed for a small model like this, at least for me. So I just wanted to make sure that SAFE was not negatively on or impacted the flight. I had to make sure I could turn it off. So I'll show you some close-ups of the instruction manual. This is the instruction manual. The 2 things that I will discuss in detail here is the computerized transmitter setup. And notice it talks about the DX6 right here, what has to be done. And then the other thing you have to do, you have to bind the transmitter to this model. Now, binding is part of the 2.4 gigahertz technology. It allows us to fly without frequency boards. And what it does is it's an electronic handshake between this transmitter and this receiver. You can turn it on. They know who they are. There is no interference. So let me just read real quickly how to bind it, and then you can do this on your own. The key thing on the binding is you have to put the receiver into the binding mode looking for a transmitter, and then you bind it with the DX6. Because the binding procedures are kind of general in the airplane instruction manual because it depends on the transmitter. So I'm not going to bind it because I've already binded it, but what will happen is when you connect the battery to the airplane and the transmitter is off, if you look carefully inside, After about 5 to 7 seconds, you'll see the flashing light on the receiver. It's inside the airplane, but you can see the flashing light. I've done this with other Park Zone equipment. That flashing light means that the receiver is in the bind process of looking for a signal. When it's in the bind process, you simply make sure your model is selected here, hold down the bind button on the DX6, and you turn it on. That will enter it into the bind mode, and just very quickly it'll bind to the airplane, and everything is good to go with that. The other thing you'll have to do is change some of the channel assignments on your transmitter, in my case the DX6, to take account for the safe modes and the panic button. So what happens on this, on your instruction manual, is the computerized transmitter setup for the DX6, and we go down here, and it uses some modes that we don't use too often, so I want to show you what those look like. So first of all, we turn on the transmitter. I'll be looking at this screen right here, and notice I gave a name, the Cub S. What we do is, with this little scroll wheel, we press it down once, and this turns us into the function list. The function list are things that we do normally, like servo setup, servo reversing, things like that. If you go a little bit further down, you'll see a menu called System Setup. We push down the function menu. It's going to turn off the transmitter while we do this. And this is the system setup versus the function list. And again, I have another video on tips and tricks of the DX6. I'll put a card up for that. And what we do per the instructions of the airplane is we have to go down to what's called channel assign. So this is throttle, aileron, elevator, all's normal. Per the Cubs instructions, go to the next menu, and what we have to do is put gear to A, and for the aux1, it had a little I. I couldn't quite find it, so what I did was I just played around a little bit and chose the inhibit, and I'll show you how all that works. And then once we're done with that, we go up to the main menu, and we're good to test out the airplane. I've plugged in the battery. Notice that the AS3X is not working. And what we do to activate that, we just turn on the throttle for a second, and you can hear that chatter. That's the AS3X working in the background. Now, what happens is AS3X moves out the airplane in flight. Today with a test flight, it was pretty windy, it was bouncing around, but the AS3X worked in the background to make it feel like a smoother airplane. I had to be honest with you, play around with these switches to see what, if any, affected the safe. And I found out that A, for whatever reason, on my setup, when it's forward in the inhibit position, it's in the regular mode. When I go back, it's in the safe mode. And we'll see the safe mode because let's say that I'm banking this way. Do you see the controls? It's trying to right the airplane. Same way if I go up, see how the elevator goes down, and if I go nose down, the elevator goes up. That is the safe mode. I don't want to fly in the safe mode, so I turn that off. We're back to AS3X, and everything works and flies normally for the airplane. So thank you for looking at my video. If you have this model and you're having problems flying with the supplied transmitter, consider binding it to one of your main radios if it can be binded. I have honestly no idea if it works with Futaba, FlySky, any of the other brands. I know it works with Spektrum because I did it. It made all the difference in the world. I made sure I was out of safe mode. And you can see from the flights, it just absolutely flew like all these other E-Flite models too. Smooth, positive, a very pleasant airplane to fly. Greetings from Hilltop Live.
Another beautiful day.